There shall be no foolish one, baby. Excellent. I've had some audiences sit there blankly while I said that. A little different, I can tell you. Okay. Welcome to Life After Voldemort, or as I prefer to call it, MAFS. Muggles at first sight. Tonight you'll be learning all about Snape. There are things you may think you know about him. For example, a lot of us are familiar with Snape from the books. Others are familiar with Snape from the movies. Made famous by that most wonderful of actors. We all know his name, Hans Gruber. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. Okay. And of course there are some variances between the books and the movies. For example, very famously in the book, Dumbledore said calmly, "Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire?" But as some of us may know, in the movies, Dumbledore says calmly, "Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire?" Now, first, especially if anyone is up to date on social media, I best address the elephant in the room. I do hate when my dietitian calls me that. But my first pity laugh, lovely. But you may be familiar with the fact that there is talk of casting a Snape that is a man of colour. People ask me my opinion. I'm not that fussed. I am concerned though, if I reprise the role in future, am I allowed to blackface? But at least I will be able to say, "Come to Papa." Okay. Now, to address the second big topic, which I guess we can't really call it an elephant, so we'll call it a dragon. Or as Barty Crouch is wont to say, Chinese fireball. And that topic is, as many of you may have questions for the Wizarding World, is everyone here familiar with the phrase, "God works in mysterious ways"? Yes. Yeah, hopefully, okay. So, the question that a lot of people ask about the Wizarding World is about its inconsistencies. For example, Luna Lovegood corrected Harry Potter's broken nose. That was just a typo. So Luna Lovegood corrects Harry Potter's broken nose with a spell in one of the later movies. And in the very first movie, Hermione Granger famously fixes his glasses with Oculus Reparo. Why doesn't she just fix his broken fucking eyesight? That's the question. So, all of those discrepancy type questions you may have can all get washed away with one answer. J.K. Rowling writes in mysterious ways. So that will cover that. There we go, problem solved. Now, having said that, they're touching on religion almost. Is anyone familiar with, or have a friend by any chance that is a really stout Christian that wears a WWJD bracelet? Is anyone familiar with what that represents?
Yeah.
Yes. What would Jesus do? So for the people that are really hardcore Christians that want to make all their life decisions, what would Jesus do? Well, I think the progression of that should be, although unfortunately it doesn't quite make for as user-friendly of a wristband, but what would he who must be named do? That would be one way to live your life. Not such a great bracelet. So, tonight we will actually run our class to a lesson plan. And the lesson plan will go through the following topics. I'll let you take a second to read them. I don't need to read everything out to you, but as you can see, we will touch on things like life after Voldemort. I will then spill the beans on the Wizarding World. However, the audience tonight does look a bit young, So I guess instead of spilling the beans, I should be spilling the tea. That's what young people call it. Then of course there'll be a quiz on Snape and other characters. We will talk about the global wizarding world a little bit. Some questions for you, the audience, so I can get to know some muggles here. Plus predictions, which you may come away with something educational. And then a deep dive into my love life and my career. Excellent, we'll cover that too. Now, to kick us off, I would like to start by asking, I'll pick on this young lady here, if you could please turn the book to page 300. You're all supposed to say 390. Well, actually, no, page 1. Right. No, I'm fucking with you. Yes, of course, page 394, sorry. Which has been opened so many times it should basically open automatically. And if you could just read the large print out loud, please.
I am a whore.
Oh, sorry, please turn page.
Crux.
Thank you. I am a Horcrux is what we were looking for in that, yes. Interestingly, over the run of the show, I have had people say, I am not a whore. And one woman obviously didn't know Harry Potter very well. I am a Horcrux. Her friends looked at her with disdain after that. Okay. And I'm wearing the long cape tonight. All right. To address life since Voldemort. Just in case anyone's curious about the whole topic of how is it that Snape is alive, because we saw Nagini attack you. I took honey badger anti-venom all the time because I knew Nagini was a threat. So when I got bitten, I actually went into a kind of coma and then came back out again, so hence I'm not dead. And for the purposes of the festival show, that's good enough. Okay. Also, to get to know the audience a little bit, I'm just going to pick on the lady here in the second row. I think it's the right expression that you young people use. You're giving Hermione Granger vibes. Is that right? Although you do seem like you'd be more likely to say it's the comedy festival, not the comedy festival. I was just trying to Leviosa the mood. Some of them will be that tacky. Yes. Okay. Life since Voldemort and the whole Armageddon of the wizarding world. Obviously, we've all had to take up different careers, a lot of us magical folk. I have had to resort to doing stand-up comedy, as you can see. I do follow in the footsteps of the Dark Lord of comedy, he who must not be named, but I do bear his dark mark. I hope you can read it. Bill Cosby. Yes. Apparently, Bill Cosby, he was a potions master as well. Too soon? Too soon? Okay. Now, I did want to expand my Muggle comedy knowledge, so I did watch some footage of a Muggle comedian called Ricky Gervais. You may be familiar with Ricky Gervais. He famously, in one of his Netflix specials, talks about cats and the fact that on a male cat, on its penis, it had spikes. Is anyone familiar with that? Spikes or barbs, they're called. So interestingly, if in the middle of the night you ever hear cats outside having sex, and that's how much pain the female cat is in. It would be horrific, I suspect. Now, in case you're wondering, where does that fit into comedy? I only bring that. Any cats, meet me after the show. I only bring that up to say that if you were very observant throughout the Harry Potter movies, you would have noted that Professor McGonagall famously transfigures into a cat. And in one of the later movies, after she transfigures into a cat and back, she doesn't quite walk the same. The rest of the movie. That gets an amazing array of various references. Okay. Now, other Wizarding World people have had to take up different options and alternatives since. It hasn't been as fun for some of the people. Sadly, poor Luna Lovegood, she's had to resort to selling pictures of herself naked on OnlyOnes. So, I have to resort to all kinds of things. Now, Ollivander, you may, have you seen her site? No. Now the world has become, the world is a very diverse place with all different types of people. Neville Longbottom, he's living a different lifestyle now. He goes by the name of Neville Long Powerbottom. Apparently, he has shacked up with Seamus Finnegan and again. Also, I'm hoping we have fans of Rubius Hagrid in the room. Excellent. You probably are hopefully very familiar with a Muggle spy by the name of James Bond, 007, very famous. So there's now another spy, Rubius Hagrid, XXXXL. And he's also like the best undercover secret, no one knows his identity. I should not have said that. Wait, sorry, let me address that again. Sorry, let me try one more time. I should not have said that! Token Hagrid being joke there. At the end of the movies, all the professors got together for a big group photo. And as we stood there for our photo, Professor McGonagall had the audacity to tell me that I should smile with my eyes. So I told her she should wink with her tits. It's only fair. We also used to get up to mischief. Sometimes it was managed, sometimes not. But we would have freak-offs. They were hosted by P. Dobby. Yes, I went there. 10,000 bottles of Felix Felicis, we're just pouring it over. Also, I would often stay late getting drunk with my new bestie, Nearly Legless Nick. Nearly Legless Nick was a good drinker. And then, interestingly, yes, I'll wait for you to piss. Nearly Legless Nick. If you were ever asked by Professor Umbridge to come back to her office to do lines, she didn't mean writing with her terrible quill of pain. She actually meant doing lines off the mirror of Ecock. Yes, if we all remember the mirror of Erised, mirror of Ecock, same thing. It's going backwards. We would all be backstage rehearsing our lines as we were wont to do. If anyone remembers young Daniel Radcliffe when he was starting off, he was such a young'un, but he was dedicated to the craft. And if we remember in the first Quidditch scene where he catches the golden snitch in his mouth, yes? So while we were all rehearsing lines, he was lying on his back on the floor, teabagging golden snitches, just one after another. And tonight, no one likes the teabagging. Fair enough. Well then, I'll introduce the next joke a little differently. To get the taste out of his mouth, he would like to go late night out to get Big Macs and fries. We used to call that our drive-through order of the Phoenix. You can use that one with your friends. And some very, very insider news that most people don't know about, most muggles have no idea about this. In the scene where Dobby gets handed a sock and becomes free, that sock, at the very last minute, we had to grab that sock off one of the cameramen because the prop sock that we originally had was a sock that Harry had got from the Weasley boys that was a hand-me-down Weasley boys sock and wasn't really in any condition for catches. A bit too crusty. That was, I myself, I was very supportive. I was a very strong ally in the wizarding community to the LGBTQ LGBT community in the wizarding world. Of course, elves, goblins, boggarts, and trolls. And I would often... That's right. I love somebody all laughing. Akio laughs. Thank you. The Slytherins would often have late night sex parties. And I'm glad we're all shocked yet. The scary part was they didn't use protection. So as you would, like your worst fear would come true, Goyle got crayons. It's not a very quick tangent, kind of out of character to be exact. I'm talking to you as Alan Rickman now, not saying. No. Is anyone here from the trivias I hosted at Harry Potter Trivia? This is things you probably wouldn't know anyway. Well, some of it you may, because famously I was Potions Master for a long, long time, but always wanted to be Defense Against Dark Arts. And I don't know if any of you are in a similar position where the job you're doing isn't the job you ideally want, and it's not your passion, so you always feel like a square peg in a round hole. I did, and so after so many years of pegging, I've just decided, no, I have to be Defense Against Dark Arts. Yes, that was just a pegging joke. All right. You may also know about the Neville Longbottom's parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom. Famously, they were tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange, tortured into madness. And sadly, she tortured them so terribly that you may not be aware, originally they were actually known as Frank and Alice normal-sized bottom. I think she used the rack on them, amongst other things. Also, the Malfoy, yes, jokes of all varying degrees. The Malfoy family, famously the Malfoy family had very, very white hair. Lucius, very white hair. Narcissa had a kind of Cruella thing, mostly white with some black. And then their son, of course, very white hair. And over in the Slytherin rooms, the Slytherin boys were always trying to hide, like hang around the change rooms, because they always wanted to see if they could catch Draco, if they could catch the Malfoy boy naked, because they wanted to see if the carpet matched the Draco. I kind of, yeah, I telegraphed that joke, sorry. My Patronus is famously known to be a doe, and some people said to me, Severus, that's not very masculine. Why don't you have a more masculine Patronus like a lion? And I would say to them, do you know how hard it is to fuck a lion? Remember, I was a very lonely man. People ask me, how long did I love Lily? And I tell them, always. I'm glad you all say, oh. My tattoo artist said, are you serious? You want me to put that? No. All right. It's a permanent tattoo, just so. All right. I'm committed to this role till I fucking die. All right. You may also be familiar with the Marauders map and like the Marauders, James Potter and his friends. Back in those days, the Weasley family, Arthur Weasley was roughly the same age. He went to school at the same time. He wanted to join the Marauders. And he said, I would love to be a Marauder in your gang. And they said, no, we don't want to be known as Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs, and Fantapants. No. Okay. Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs, and Ranger. Does that go over there? You can never tell which crowds like Fantapants, which crowds like Ranger. I am going to demonstrate Occlumency. It's about to get very serious all of a sudden. We all remember when I demonstrate occlumency with Harry, because I tell him he has to block his mind. Do not let Voldemort penetrate his mind. Well, the Dark Lord is where I got confused. Okay, right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick someone in the audience. So you, sir, if you could just completely blank. Fuck, that was fast. Sorry. I mean, well done, sir. You completely emptied your mind so Hey, are you his carer? Thank you for being such a good sport. Very rarely, but I've had nights where everyone's just gone, what the fuck was that? Doesn't quite work the same thing. Now, what I do want to do, interestingly, we're not finished with the occlumency yet. Okay. Here's where it gets super nerdy for everybody. I'm assuming you've all seen the movies and have seen the Order of the Phoenix. In that movie, that's the one where I, as I mentioned, drag Harry down to my office and say, I need to teach you to strengthen your mind, block your mind, don't let the Voldemort penetrate your mind. Now, when I do that, interestingly, in that scene, I sit Harry down and then I put my tools down and I spread out my little tray of tools, which it happens so quickly. If you're watching the scene, you need to freeze frame it to see it, which I had to do even though I was in the scene. So what I'll do is I'll do that by telling you things like our mottos, where the first part you will recognise, because muggles have seen it in the movies and everything and heard it, but then the latter part is very private in the Wizarding world and you wouldn't have known about it. So for example, famously the Hogwarts motto, which you may know the first part, never tickle a sleeping dragon, and don't even think about teabagging it. And that's the Wizarding part that we have. As we learned tonight, teabagging jokes are unpopular. Ravenclaw also have their own motto, wit without measure is man's greatest treasure. That or $1 billion. Gryffindor, very proudly, Gryffindor, do what is right, but do who is wrong. Why do you think their flag is red? Red flags. Oh, really? I had to just get red flag. There's a red flag. Their flag is literally red and gold. Note, gold. Got a fucking laugh. My favourite, though, of course, Slytherin will be my favourite, but also I do love Hufflepuffs. Hufflepuffs is very simple, is very precise to the point. Hard work, patience, loyalty, and girth. Not sure what they're going for with that one. Slytherins, literally, our Slytherin House's motto, the world is not enough. But with an 8-ball of Coke, it can feel like it is. Okay. So, tonight's crowd, not such big fans of Coke. Other nights they laugh, I don't know why. Other houses, or other schools in other countries, you may know of Beauxbatons, famously, of course. Beauxbatons from France, named after some French words, beau, meaning attractive, proud, firm, and baton, meaning penis. Which I think Ron Weasley really lived up to that Beauxbaton when he was watching the girls when they arrived in the Fort Also, the Durmstrang school from Bulgaria, coming from Bulgarian words strang, meaning strange, and derm, meaning penis. Meaning accent. I read the wrong line. Meaning accent. Strange accent. Strange accent. Very strange accent. Now, here's the interesting part I would like your help with. I'm trying to set up an Australian wizarding school. And you know it's just a bit, yeah? I can't wait for you all to go online and research where would be a good place to build a school. No, what I want to do is I want to come up with a good Australian wizarding school, and I've asked previous audiences audiences. And so, for example, some of the suggestions I had was the Yeah Nah School of Wizarding. It's pretty Australian. I'm going to sing an Australian theme song that I'm hoping you guys can join in with the second part. We'll see if you know. Am I ever gonna see Muggles again? How many people, I'm not going to call you out, so don't be embarrassed, but how many people knew what was just said? And how many people are like, what was that? Oh my God. Okay. Let me sit, okay. I'm going to very briefly step out of character for a second. Yes, again. Back in 19, although I'll try to do a better voice. Let's see. Back in 1977 in Australia, there was a band called the Angels. They famously sung an Australian rock song that says, "Am I ever gonna see your face again?" And we're all familiar with the Sweet Caroline. Da, da, da. Yeah, your times ever felt so good. So good, so good. Yeah, we're right. Okay. So exactly what people do to that song. Back in the 70s, they did that to Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again? And everyone would just go, no way, get fucked, fuck off. Many years ago, I had a colleague, I was a nerd, worked in IT, had a colleague from Singapore come over here. He was at a bar, we're all out drinking, that song comes on, everyone goes, am I ever gonna see your face again? The whole room just yells, so imagine that you're the only person in the room that doesn't go, no way, get fucked, fuck off. And he goes, ah, because he doesn't know what happened. And we all go, oh, but you don't know, ah. So we all explained to him in the chorus, sing No Way, Get Fucked, Fuck Off. We were all drunk, and he was so drunk, but so excited. He's like, I want to get in on this. 110% for effort, but only 60% for execution. Because at the next chorus, am I ever gonna see your face again? He turns to the guy next to him, who happens to be probably the biggest Maori in the place, and says, fuck you, get fucked, I fucked your mother in the ass. And that man looked at him and was about to dismember him right then and there. And we all like, no, he just doesn't know. It's just, you know. There you go. All right. Back to the script. All right. In our Australian wizarding school, we of course have to have houses. And so we all, know famously the Ravenclaw, etc., etc. What houses would we have in Australia? What I've found from different people is it seems the most popular would be the Eshays. The Eshays. And the Eshays motto would be, I'll roll you for that one, cunt. Apparently that's the kind of thing they would say. We would also have the Karens. And the Karens would be, I want to cast a spell with the manager. Then of course we would have the Bogans. And the Bogans motto would be, brooms are like bakers. They're for making donuts, mate. They love their donuts. And then we would also have the hipsters. And the hipsters would have vintage brooms. They'd wear Harry Potter framed glasses unironically. The wizards would have muggle buns. And they'd probably be dairy free, so they'd all be drinking I can't believe it's not butter beer. Best wizard dad joke of the night. Alright. Now, and then we would have one more house that we would have had to retire immediately because it would be run by Bob Catter. It would be called the Boomers. And their motto would be, back in my day, a real man never had a unicorn here in his friggin' wand. What's with all this transfiguration rubbish? Now, like I said, that's shocking and none of us like that. None of us like that, but we all have grandfathers, so we've probably heard it before. But anyway, right. So instead of the sorting hat, what we have tonight for you is something slightly different. I don't know if you can guess what it is, but it's the safe word hat. Yes. And how the safe word hat works, when I put it above your head, it will telepathically tell me what your optimum safe word is, which may not be what you think it is or what you use now. So we're going to find out what people's safe words are. So I'm going to start with you, sir. Let's see. You're quite brave. Your safe word is keep going. I don't know if that's counterproductive, but anyway. Let's see if we try German over here. Ah, you're very brave, if I may say. Your safe word is that all you've got? I'm going to pick up the gentleman on the back row now. You're a little bit more delicate. Your safe word is call 911. Fair enough. Someone said to me something. Well, someone definitely had to be that. This is my script. No. Okay. Also, we may be familiar with other things, other magical items from the Wizarding world. We're all familiar with the mirror of Erised, as we talked about. The mirror of the Erutooth. I love the reverence in it. Ooh. And I'm assuming we're all familiar, or we're not having too much trouble working out what the mirror of the Erutooth. Okay, making sure. Now, I am going to, let's see, I'm going to magically sense, actually it's going to be the young man in the front row. Sorry, you're in the best spot to be able to, okay. So we're going to use the mirror of the Erutooth to see your future. You can change it with a good skincare routine. It doesn't have to be. All right. Finally, just in that psychic mode of interacting with you. The lady there with the glasses. I don't know, have any of you done those online surveys where you find out what your Patronuses are? Does anyone know? Okay. But the lady, I'm sensing, I'm very psychic, I can tell. Your Patronus, your ideal Patronus, it's a penguin with tariffs. Okay, are we all aware of the penguin tariffs? Okay, sorry. That was the only thing where I thought I've got to talk about that. Wait. Your Patronus is either that or an astronaut named Katy Perry who can feel so much fucking love. Anyway, no. Why wouldn't you go to space just to feel the love? I don't know. Listen, no wait. What's his name? Neil Armstrong. A small step for man, but fuck so much love. No, sorry. Come see me do a Muggle performance one night. I will have a better joke for that. All right, moving on. A deep dive into my love life and my career. So we're all probably familiar with, of course, the fact that I was madly in love as a young boy with Lily Potter, although she was Lily Evans back then. And are we all familiar with the movie The Terminator, where Arnold Schwarzenegger famously goes to the white pages looking up every Sarah Connor? If you wanted to look up an individual person, you looked in the white pages, which sounds very racist, really, when you think about it, the white pages. And so I was trying to find all the Lily Evanses I could. Luckily, the Wizarding world, we're nowhere near that racist. I just reached for the pure blood pages. Oh shit, that sounds worse. Okay, don't forget that. It does sound racist. Alright, moving on. Yeah, that was all that joke was. When I was younger, I was actually quite successful with the ladies. I did have a Riz. I was very proficient sexually. I'm not sure why you're laughing. I don't like to boast, but who do you think it was that taught Myrtle how to moan? Yes, okay. Oh, Jesus, we're almost at time, unfortunately. But now, okay, I'll go over a little bit. You don't have to cruciatus my arm. Twist my arm. I do need to find a new career, obviously, because there's no Wizarding world to school to teach at. So I've tried different careers, and I'll work this out with a little bit of your help by checking what careers people in the room have. So for example, is there anyone here who is a miner, or has a friend, or knows someone who is not a miner, but what they call a FIFO, a fly-in, fly-out? Does anyone know those people? They fly in and work in the mines, like digging, and they fly. So this whole fly-in, fly-out FIFO thing, that I've had that suggested to me, but when I looked into that, I realised I would fly on my broom. So I would broom in and broom out. But also in WA, there is a town called Broome. So I probably broom. Yeah. So I would probably broom into broom and broom out of broom, so I'd probably be a bib bob. So instead of a FIFO, I'd be a bib bob in the phone. And most interestingly, is there anyone who works in hospo or hospitality? Does anyone in the room have their liquor license? No one in tonight's audience has a liquor license. I looked into getting one. They're harder than you would think. So I wasn't able to get a liquor license, so I had to get the next level down. I got a lick him license. It doesn't taste the same. Now, does anyone work in any kind of futuristic technology? Okay. Like, for example, ChatGPT. Has anyone tried using ChatGPT? Okay. A lot of comedians are actually worried about whether ChatGPT will write better jokes and replace the need for live comedians. ChatGPT said to me, here is what will be the funniest joke in history, but it will be the funniest joke in history in the year 2050. So are we all ready to hear a very futuristic funniest joke ever? Okay, let's see. Knock knock. Who's there? Humans, remember them? Yes, it's a Skynet joke. Now, it's not our favourite. Guess what? That joke's not for us. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. Now, we're almost finished, so I did have some success at a job, but sadly, it didn't last all that long. Because as it's my nature to teach, I tried working in a sex shop, an adult sex shop. I was very comfortable there because I was known as a half-erect prince. And the interesting thing was that I was always trying to teach customers, and that wasn't very popular because I would always tell customers, I would say, I can teach you to bewitch the penis, ensnare the vag. I can teach you to brew your own lube, to bottle jizz, and even put a stopper in your butt. I've never had the audience make a noise as if that was a Horcrux before. Okay. Finally, the other success I had was in the music industry. I did become. Right. I should have done this in different order. Alright, that'll do. Okay. I was a DJ. I was hosting all-night rave and claw parties. But then, apart from being a DJ, I also just did more mainstream. I'll keep it on. I did do more mainstream music as well. I worked as a lounge singer singing cover songs. For example, do we have any Adele fans in the room? Yeah. Really? Okay, so I used... it's not that big a deal, but congratulations, I don't know, whatever. What do you say to someone when they're an Adele fan? Well done. So I did use an Adele song to sing about a ballad that I wrote about trying to commit arson on the Hogwarts Express. So you may recognise the first line. I set fire to the train. Now also, do we have, and this usually gets a much bigger woo, do we have any Chapel Roan fans in the room? That have seen death? Okay. Pink Festival Club. That's it. That's what it will be if you've seen death. Finally, last two songs. So we all know when this lesson's going to finish. I sung a kind of rap song you may be familiar with. My potions bring Gryffindors to the yard, and their owls are better than yours. I was very popular in the movies anymore. And then finally, this is the end of the show. Finally, I will leave you with my most famous song. The most famous song that I sung was a Kiss song, in case we're all Kiss fans. I was made for loving you. Lily!